de tout reprogrammer. On ira, on saura sauver notre existence, se donner une chance de tout effacer. On ira, on saura sauver notre existence pour refaire un monde sans danger.
So it's 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to Return to the Past, a Code Lyoko retrospective. We are the internet's premier Code Lyoko fancast because we are the first, the only, and the best. My name is David, aka the cute one.
My name is Mary, aka the middle one.
The cool one. You're the cool one.
And my name is Ben, and I'm going to come over there and strangle the crap out of you so I can be the cute one. Anyway, welcome to Return to the Past. We're not anywhere near this violent most of the time. So over the course of the next presumably 97-ish episodes, we're going to go week by week through one episode of the television show from the early 2000s that you remember for the foreheads, Code Lyoko.
Yes, and we remember because we have dedicated over a decade of our lives to it.
To remind you a little better, it's the show that you watched while you were waiting for Teen Titans to come on back in 2004.
And so did we.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of kept watching it week after week because it was on every single day. And then, just a little while after that, we realized what a work of beauty it was.
It really was better than people give it credit for. It did a lot of things that we hadn't seen in animation before. Narratively, especially, not just in terms of the actual animation.
And if this comes as a surprise to you, then our goal here is sort of to convince you, to share with you what we've observed and what we've experienced, and hopefully entertain you in the process and have some fun. And I guess we should start off by describing what exactly is a Code Lyoko. Is it something you eat?
What is a Code Lyoko, Ben? What do you think?
Well, a Code Lyoko is a television show about these...
Nothing.
Yes,
it's a show about nothing.
How do we know when it's over? It's a television show about this group of children at a middle school.
French children.
They're French children. We don't initially know at first that they're French, but they were actually French the whole time.
They actually were. They were French in 2003, but then they came over here in 2004 and became American.
They did. And they even set up an exchange program with France in that one episode.
They did.
Even though they live in there. We'll get to that in something like 30 episodes. No spoilers.
We will.
So anyway, these middle school children...
France Hopper dies!
Gosh darn it, Mary.
Wait, what happened? What happened? What did you do? What did you do this time, Mary?
Nothing.
So, anyway, French kids at a middle school.
One of them is Japanese.
One of them is Japanese. One of them
is vaguely German.
Yep, vaguely German. And they have a secret. And their secret is that...
Can you keep it?
From time to time, they are called upon to save the world from an evil computer virus.
No, he's not a virus. He's a program. He's a computer program.
Okay, that's the second time today that I'm going to have to go over there and strangle you because he is clearly described in the opening season as a virus.
I distinctly remember the TV Tropes page says that you'll be gathered banned if you call him a virus. He is a program. Well, I guess a virus is a program. So
there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's not all squares or rectangles.
I apologize.
Other way around. You should. How dare you?
That is...
Okay.
Okay.
So there's this virus. And
there's this virus in a supercomputer that they found inside an abandoned factory.
Yes,
and also
in the basement.
And in the basement of this abandoned factory. And inside this computer there is also an entire world, an entire virtual universe. And inside that virtual universe lives one person.
Exactly
one mysterious girl in this entire empty world. And we are faced, when we begin the series, with wondering what this world is, what it's for, who the girl is, and what this evil computer virus, who we know as Xana, is and what he wants.
Except that we're not, because for the first 10 minutes of the show, we know absolutely none of this.
Yeah.
That's very true. Code Lyoko is famous, or maybe, okay, I guess it's not really famous, but notable in some respects.
Notable among aficionados.
And detractors alike. Because one of the reasons people didn't really get into the show was that there was no exposition. So you were totally lost.
But entertainingly lost.
Yeah.
Well, we think
I
so
got into
anyway.
it.
And we hope you do too, dear listener.
Listeners.
So the gimmick is that when you see the kids in the quote-unquote real world, it's 2D animation. And when they are in the virtual world, aka Lyoko, then it's 3D. It's Beast Wars-looking, reboot-style 3D.
I think it's a little better than Reboot. I mean, it's like 10 years
It got better
more
than
of animation.
It got better than Reboot. It wasn't much better than Reboot at first.
It has, I mean, now that we look back on it and it's something like 14 years old, it has aged a little bit. But, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's still pretty good, if you ask me.
No, I was thinking that today as I was watching season 1, episode 1, Teddygozilla. That's Teddygozilla.
Yes, that is indeed how you spell
correct.
Teddygozilla.
Did I win the spelling bee?
You do.
You won the spelling bee, Mary.
I won a spelling bee in real life once.
Yes, you
I
did.
did.
You won a Spanish language spelling
No, I
bee
didn't.
in 4th grade.
Was it? Was it Spanish language? It might have been. I don't remember.
Wasn't it?
It might have been. It was. I was in 3rd grade. It's been a long time.
Oh, okay. So either I got the language and the
No,
grade
you're right.
wrong,
It
or
was.
just the
It
grade.
was Spanish language. You know how I remember? Because the English language spelling bee champion got a way bigger trophy than mine. True story.
Jerkwad.
Indeed.
Come on!
Well, that's just how things were back then.
That's mean.
It's okay. I hated my entire school life anyway, so just
Well,
a drop in a bucket.
exactly. This is going to be This is going to be an adventure vastly more spectacular than that.
Oh, it is. You are in
What
for a
were we
treat.
talking about?
We were
So-
talking
What
about
were we
Teddygozilla.
We were talking about episode 1 of season 1, Teddygozilla, so named
Oh, yes,
because, it's totally not a copyright infringement at all.
Oh, absolutely not. Nothing in this show is, especially not when we get to end of tape.
Well, wait,
no
wait.
copyright infringements in there whatsoever.
Before we dive right into episode 1, shouldn't we talk about how we got into the show? Like our little stories with the show, about the show?
Briefly, I think, because I think if I were to go into absolutely all of it, we
yeah.
would be here for about 10 years.
Well, my story's not that long. You go first, though. You go first.
Oh, okay. Well, there's not really too much to tell. I got into the show just before the 2nd season started airing, and there was 4 seasons. The first was made from 2003 to 2004, and then there was pretty consistently a season every year until 2008. And then that was the end of the show.
And then...
And nothing else happened after that.
Oh,
Nothing
right, yes. I forgot.
happened ever.
I forgot about the thing.
You forgot about nothing, because nothing happened. The show ended, and it has been done.
There was a live-action adaptation.
No, there
of
wasn't.
Lyoko Evolution that aired from 2011 to 2012.
It's not real. It's like that Sinbad Genie movie. You remember it, but it didn't really happen.
Anyway, I first discovered the show in 2005. I was all of 12 years old, and just like David said earlier, I watched it because it must have... I don't really even remember what was going on that summer. We watched a lot of TV, watched a lot of Teen Titans, and it just happened to notice that this show was coming on over and over again. And at the time, I was the kind of kid who would watch TV and also go on the computer at the same time. So I would just sort of look up stuff about the TV shows I was watching on the ever-reliable-tv.com. And then I just started reading all the Code Lyoko summaries and started chatting on the forums and eventually just got really, really, really into the story just because I guess more than any other show I was watching at the time, there was so much going on and there was an arcing storyline that went on from thing to thing or episode to episode, and the 2nd season was just about to air, and of course that one blew my mind because
It's the best.
Around.
And the thing about Code Lyoko, though, is that it really doesn't talk down to its young audience. You know, the
No.
kids are very realistic. They're not typical cartoon kids. They're very down to earth.
Yes, and there's this huge dramatic element to it, too, that I think really caught me because I was on the borderline of becoming an angsty teen, and I was
Oh.
sort of looking for something like that, and
I know that feel.
Code Lyoko is where I found it. And so then I joined a Code Lyoko fan forum, the name of which we will not say here to protect the innocent.
You know the one. If you know Code Lyoko, you know which one it is.
Yes, and that is...
I'm going to wager that 100% of the people that are listening to this one episode have been there at least once.
That's a good wager.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we'll expand our audience. And that is where I met these two clowns.
Hey.
Okay. I'll take that. That's fair. So the thing about my introduction to Code Lyoko...
you're wonderful clowns. You're wonderful clowns, Ben.
The thing about my introduction to Code Lyoko is that I honestly have no memory of first starting Code Lyoko. I'm almost certain that I must have started sometime in the middle of the first season. I don't... Because I remember very distinctly looking forward to a friend of mine to the second season, because the commercials for the upcoming season of Code Lyoko were blowing my little mind. But I honestly have no real recollection of my very first impressions of the show, which is almost disappointing. But in a similar vein to Mary, I discovered the internet communities about Code Lyoko, and Code Lyoko was absolutely my first real entrance into what we now call fandom. Definitely the very first community of people dedicated to a single show that I joined. And while I was young and just a horrible at the beginning and didn't probably get too much better by the end of it, it's definitely a very fond period of memory of my life. So I always look back to Code Lyoko very fondly as sort of a symbol of my own growth in my own childhood. It's definitely a very captivating show. I think more than almost any other show that I watched at the time, it just really grabbed me as something that was really interesting. And I hope that you think so too. And if you don't now, then I hope to have converted you by the time we are done. What about you, David?
Well, my story's a lot simpler than yours. I was just waiting, because I remember I started watching it around the time it first started airing on Cartoon Network. That's when Megusi appeared and everyone hated it. And I remember that the lineup was Totally Spies, then Code Lyoko, then Ninja Turtles, and then Teen Titans.
Totally Spies.
Oh, remember that? Remember Totally Spies?
Oh,
another French show.
Yeah.
That's
From France.
That's another podcast we could get into.
Another podcast for
we'll
another
save
day.
that for later.
Well, here's the thing. I kind of ignored it at first because I thought it looked weird and off-putting, and I didn't... Like, I was just
This being Code Lyoko and not Totally Spies?
Yeah, this being Code Lyoko. It looked weird. It looked kind of like anime, but not really. And, like, when I was a kid, like, my parents wouldn't let me watch anime because they thought it was too violent. So to this day, I've never seen a single episode of Dragon Ball Z, for example. So that was, like, before I really started developing my own tastes in TV. So all I wanted to watch was Teen Titans, because that had Robin in it, and Batman was Western, and that was okay. So,
Obvi.
yeah. So what happened was, one time I just watched a random episode of Code Lyoko just because I had nothing better to do, and it was the episode Routine, the one where Yumi gets so mad that the whole world turns red, as we will discuss.
That one.
Oh yeah, good times. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really liked it. I thought it was really good.
This is the story of a girl.
It was a good story.
Cried a river.
What's up?
I said who cried a river and drowned the whole world.
Oh, she did.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to.
don't worry about it. Well, point is, the day after that, I had to go on a trip to see my aunt in Mexico City, and so I just watched that one episode, and it wouldn't leave my mind the whole time I was there. I kept thinking back on it, because it was like, it took the childhood drama so seriously and so respectfully, because those are the kinds of feelings you have when you're that age, and I was that age. I was 14. So it just kind of became a little parasite in my brain. And when I came back, I just decided I was going to start the show. I was going to start watching it regularly, and I did. And I liked it a lot. And that is my story.
And here we are.
Yes.
And here we are.
I hope that
And
makes
I should
sense. I know
clarify-
I'm a rambler, so, and also a stutterer sometimes. So I apologize.
We're just gonna get a David whistle and blow it when you're talking too loud. Well, we're gonna get an orchestra. We'll be like the
That
Oscars.
will be helpful, yes.
The Oscars, except far less biased.
Oh.
But just as white.
Spitting the truth here on Return to the Past, a Code Lyoko retrospective.
Yes.
Alright, so those are our stories.
Yes. Yes, they are. I should also clarify that my connections to, as I said, these two clowns. Ben, I actually, in fact, after I met him on the Code Lyoko fan forum, I actually ended up going to college with him for 3 years.
The same exact school. She just showed up one day. No, hey, Mary.
I did. It was almost coincidence, but yes, we had good times.
A school that is, in fact, geographically separated from where both of us grew up. Like,
I mean, I had
we both
family
moved there.
I had family there. My grandmother lived 15 minutes away. And it's also probably the college with the highest number of people that were on the Code Lyoko fan forums to ever graduate from there. Wasn't there one other guy?
I don't know.
Was there another guy? That
Yeah,
sounds
there
really
was.
familiar.
It does. I think you
Yeah,
told me this before.
Yes.
Yes,
And
there
as-
was another guy who I never saw in my life, but he was there.
Yeah. But he was there. Okay, well, cool. And then my connection to David is that I have, in fact, kissed his face many times.
We have done that. It is just as gross as it sounds. Just kidding. It's not gross at all. I actually love it and enjoy it immensely.
Yes, me too.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
what
we-
did you say? I couldn't hear you. I was throwing up too hard.
But yes, David and I have been dating for...
5 years.
What is it? 5 years.
5 years, yes.
So, let's talk the heck about Teddygozilla.
Let's do that.
Teddygozilla.
Do.
The one
So-
thing that you will notice about the first episode of Code Lyoko, compared to the rest of them, is that nobody sounds like anything close to what they will sound like at the end of that season or the end of the show.
Right. And this is important. I'm going to let you finish. But the theme song. You've skipped the most important part of the show.
Oh dear.
I'm
Okay.
going to let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the greatest albums of all time.
Of
Or
all
however that
time.
went.
It's 2017, people. That's a little played out.
But old memes are cool and hip.
Okay. All right. I'll let you think that.
Okay. All right. So
So the theme song, which you all remember very fondly. Honestly, when I tell people, and I do this very rarely, but when I tell people just how much I loved Code Lyoko growing up, the one thing, no, there are two things that they say. And the first thing that they say is, wow, what an awesome theme song that show had. The second thing, of course, being, oh, is that the show with the giant foreheads?
and the answer to both of those questions is a resounding yes.
Well, except for
And-
that one line. That one really terrible line that brings down the whole song, which is, make evil go away.
It is. And it sounds so much better in French, which is why we used the French version about 15 minutes ago.
It's got to
It's-
be more than that. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. You know what? It grew on me. So what? I'm a nostalgic son of a bitch.
Well, I don't know.
Man, I'm
The thing
gonna
is-
need to break out the square filter on you.
The thing
Okay.
about the...
You're allowed one son of a per PG-13. Oh, shoot, that was a second one. Okay, you're going to have to bleep that one and all the ones after.
I'm just joking with you. David.
Yeah, I was going to say that... Well, maybe it's that I was at that age where I was really trying to distance myself from everything juvenile, but that line has always seemed a little silly. Like, to quote a friend of mine, "Look, Mommy, I can make evil go away."
Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair.
That is fair. I feel like my best guess is that the translation staff probably English was their second language rather than their first. So there's a few weird word choices, but overall it's very earnest and it's very accurate to the original. And I think it's sung by the same people, right?
I have no idea.
As far as I know, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that settles that.
And Code
Yeah.
Lyoko, in all of its essence, but especially in the theme song, is very much the peak product of its era. They do not make TV shows like Code Lyoko anymore. Long, extended theme songs.
They really don't.
That it just, who has time and energy to sit around and listen to, a 45-second opener? No, we're going to have 2 seconds, flash the title card, and let's go. And I honestly miss that quite a bit. I think there's a lost art.
There's something I found out recently. The reason they changed that is so that they can air more commercials. And shows that they get from elsewhere, for example, The Amazing World of Gumball, they cut the intro out. They just leave the title card in. If you watch Gumball in Europe, it has a much longer intro.
Capitalism strikes again.
I didn't know that. I can't believe they cut out that important part of artistry just to show, one more ad?
Probably. Probably not even that. I mean, how long are cartoon openings usually? Like 45 seconds, like you said, Ben?
30, 45
Yeah.
seconds?
Unless
But
it's
it's interesting
anime.
you bring up... Yeah, it's interesting you bring up artistry, though, because for the most part, Code Lyoko's theme songs, and it goes through 3 sort of clip shows throughout its run. It's just like I said, it's clip shows. It's basically clip art. It's clips from the show.
Mm-hmm. But with such cool effects.
Yeah, no, they are very artfully arranged. It feels there's such a good flow to it. It feels like you're going on a journey.
And of course, Code Lyoko is in and of itself quite a bit of a clip show. For those of you who watched very closely in the beginning, you will know that Code Lyoko is a very big fan of stock footage. The clips that you see in the first episode of them, going to the factory or going into Lyoko, it's all the same footage that they repeat over and over again. And that's part of why I love it. It's definitely one of the particular charms of the show, but I can see why it might have turned people off. And I think there's a lot of things about Code Lyoko that either made the people who liked it really love it, and the people who it turned away just shut them off of it forever.
Well, it's one of those things, you have to learn to appreciate the flaws. Because the flaws are half the charm in a show like this.
Exactly. You could call it tasteful jank.
You could call it Narm charm.
I don't have a witty thing to add for you could call it this, but I felt like I had to say something because both of you guys did.
Well,
just don't call it late for dinner.
We'll be here all night.
Yes. Now, Ben, you were saying about voices.
What was I saying about voices?
They all sound different.
You were saying that they all sound different.
Yes. So, one of the voice actresses for a character who we are introduced almost as if she's a main character. She doesn't really turn out to be a main character for most of the series. Her name is Sissy. She's the villain. I believe
the villain.
I thought you were going to talk about Millie.
Well, we can talk about Millie, but I want to talk about Sissy first.
Okay.
Because Sissy's voice actress...
Because Sissy needs to be first.
Yeah,
she does.
She's the star, the diva of the school. Sissy's voice actress was in place for 1 or 2 episodes, I think, maybe 3, and then she left. I don't remember what the circumstances were.
I seem to remember it might have been maternity leave. That's totally unconfirmed.
So she's very different. One of the characters, Odd, has a completely different voice than he will in the rest of the series. That wasn't a different voice actor. I guess he just felt like having a different voice.
I thought it was.
I thought it was,
was
too.
it? Was it?
Yeah,
Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, the first few episodes, Odd and Sissy both had different voice actors, and then Jeremy, don't even get me started on Jeremy.
Jeremy's voice, literally, he goes through puberty in the 2nd season, then reverts back in the 3rd. He does not have a consistent voice from season to season at any point.
And what's funny is that his voice actress doesn't actually change. It's the same lady doing the voice every time.
Yeah, just a different voice every single time.
That's so weird.
And I should also let you know that at least in the English dub of Code Lyoko, there are only 7 people doing all the voices.
Definitely. Earlier, when we mentioned Millie, Millie has the honor of being the first person to speak in the show. She's a background character, a student at the school, a younger student. She's voiced by the same person who voices the character Yumi, who is one of the main ensemble, and her voice is literally almost exactly the same as Yumi's.
I would drop the almost.
There's no difference.
I would drop the almost. They're completely identical.
Yes. And I would like to clarify that when we criticize sort of this stuff, we do it out of a place of deep love and admiration.
Yeah.
Boundless, infinite love.
Boundless, infinite love. And I guess that is a good place to start into the actual content of the series. Oh, one more thing, though. If you want to watch along the series with us, or watch up to, at the moment, episode 70, the current owner of the series, which I'm not sure who the current owner is. It's not Moonscoop, because they...
It's Kabillion. Kabillion is the current owner.
Oh, so Kabillion current...
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know Kabillion still existed.
I think somebody bought them, but they still do technically exist. Under that name, I think.
You can go to... I believe the channel is called Code Lyoko English US. And they are every week uploading an episode of Code Lyoko completely free, completely legally. And you can watch along with us, or you can watch up to episode 70, which is where they are right now. Like I said, they're posting new episodes every week, and if you would like to watch it in a native language of yours that is not English. They also have several other languages. They have French. They have the original French. I think they have Russian.
Do they have Spanish? I remember Code Lyoko being big in Spain.
It was. They had
very
a
big in
stage
Spain.
show.
We're not going to talk
show.
about that either.
The one that's about the power of friendship?
They also had much better figurines than America did.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Yeah, there was a terrible lack of Code Lyoko merchandise in the United States. But I'm not bitter or anything.
There really was. We also didn't get the novels.
Well, the novels were terrible, so I don't really mind that we didn't get them.
I appreciate the novels tried to go into the backstory, but we're getting off track again. You can see how much we love this show because we have an infinite number of tangents we can do.
I'll tell you what I appreciate, though, and this is a controversial statement, but I like that the show doesn't take place in Paris. It takes place in well, it's not called Paris. It's called the City of the Iron Tower, right?
Oh,
in the
books, yeah.
And I don't know, that really resonated with me. Like it gives the show its own identity. Kind of like how in Pokemon all the countries have different names. I don't know.
Well, Kanto is a
it
real.
Took place in Kalos.
Yeah.
I like this AU. I like it a lot.
What are we talking about? This AU, the book
We
AU.
were going to talk about the episode.
We were.
So Teddygozilla, and I have to stop myself from breaking copyright law there. It starts. The term is, and I'm probably pronouncing the Latin wrong here. In medias res. How'd I do?
You did very well.
Awesome.
I think it's in medias.
I don't speak
Okay.
Latin, so I wouldn't know.
In medias res, which means in the middle of the action. As we alluded to earlier, there is no exposition. There is no, let's sit down and talk about what this Lyoko thing is. We immediately begin, and Millie, who is a young, she's with the school newspaper, or school newscast, excuse me. She says she's from the newspaper in later episodes, but in this episode she's with the newscast. And they're talking about
Actually, they are
prom.
always recording themselves. Millie and Tamia, who is her friend, roommate, and camera person, they're always recording themselves. They don't have a TV show, and in fact, I don't think anyone on campus has a TV.
Maybe they had Channel
That's a good
1.
point.
Maybe they had Channel 1 at Caddick. They go to a school called Caddick Academy. That should be
Caddick
fun.
Academy.
Yeah, Caddick
named
Academy.
Named after the science fiction author Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, and it is in his honor that we call all sophisticated, multi-layered jokes dick jokes.
I'm not guffawing at the word dick joke. I don't know. Stop judging me. But we start, and they're talking about the school prom, which is odd because I don't think they have proms in France.
I don't think they do. That, I think, is a translation error. I looked at the original French script once, and the word they used, and just a word of warning, I did take French in high school, no prizes as to why, but the original French word is boum, B-O-U-M, which just means, like, dance
Okay,
party.
That's fair. But one thing I do want to mention, and I was thinking about this earlier, we see our group of characters setting up for the quote-unquote prom. And also setting up is Sissy, who I already told you is the villain, and her two toadies. But they're the only ones who are setting up for this dance.
Would you really call Sissy the villain, though?
I think so. She's not... Okay. No, she's not the villain. But she's absolutely a foil, and definitely an antagonist. She's not the villain, but she's definitely a bully. And there they are, they're setting up for the dance, and if I had never seen the show before, it would have appeared to me as if they were one of the coolest people in the school. You know, they're setting up for the dance. You know, who does that? The prom committee, if we're going to run that analogy? I just thought that was very odd.
Well, the thing is,
Like
though,
Della Robbia.
they're not really outcasts. I never got the impression, like, they had their own little clique, but they weren't uncool, they weren't dorky. You know, to the point that the principal's daughter, Sissy, her main motivation was to be part of their clique, and they didn't want to let her in.
That's a good point. But it just felt more towards the end of the series. I don't know, maybe I made that up in my head this whole time.
Well, it's a valid interpretation.
You could also say that they kind of isolated themselves because they have this big thing that they can't really tell anyone.
That's very true.
Also, apart from Odd, they're all introverts.
Yes,
well,
very
not
much
all
so.
of them. Odd is... Oh, you said except Odd, right?
Yeah.
Except Odd, they're all introverts.
Well, and later on, like, Aelita would turn out to be quite the social butterfly, much to Jeremy's displeasure.
That's another spoiler.
Well, okay, I did...
Oh, you just spoiled, like, the biggest thing. Well, maybe, like, the fourth biggest thing.
It's okay, it's okay.
I didn't know we were not doing spoilers. I assumed that everyone watching...
That's actually a good point. We didn't actually talk about that.
We didn't.
Plus, these episodes, again, aired 14-ish years ago.
Well,
I think...
Let me say this. The thing that I spoiled, if I spoiled a thing, won't be like an endgame thing. It'll happen fairly soon. So...
If it does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. If, in my opinion, you can't really lock the barn door after the horses are gone, so we can go ahead and do spoilers.
Well, if you had told
right,
me ahead of time that we weren't going to do spoilers...
No, that's fair. We did not talk about that at all. So
now I feel like I ruined everything.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm reaching the internet.
It'll be a while before my self-esteem, like, regenerates after this.
I tell you what, dear listeners... I think it's quite clear, can tell that we ourselves are going on a journey here. We are learning how this whole podcast thing works, so we appreciate you coming along for the ride with us. This is a journey in so many ways you do not even yet know how to comprehend.
Oh, I'm touched.
Yeah, me too. I'm very touched. In the head.
I'm reaching you out through the internet, and I'm touching the both of you. Totally appropriately.
I feel you,
it's
bro.
Not that kind of podcast. I feel you, bro. Anyway,
I feel you touching me.
I feel you both. I'm patting my shoulders.
Okay.
Now, where were we? We were talking about the principal's daughter, Sissy, who then immediately just steps into view with, as we said, her cronies, Nicholas and Herb, or if you live in France, Herve.
Yeah, I call him Herb.
His name is weird. His face is weird. Everything about him is weird.
I remember.
He has terrible acting.
I remember when I was in 7th grade. I learned about the word herb and how the H was silent unless it was somebody's name. So I've always called him Herb with a B. I don't know.
We have Herb's acne and Nicholas's shorts.
Oh yeah, the shorts. Well,
for a short time in the first episode, his midriff is also visible. There's a lot going on with Nicholas.
I've never noticed that. The thing you need to know about Nicholas and Herb, if you haven't seen the show, is that they are like a nerd and jock stereotype. They're like, Herb is a nerd and Nicholas is a jock, and they're just like the most basic stereotypes you can imagine of those two groups.
Like, Herb is, he's wearing the sweater vest, and he has the huge round glasses, and his face is covered in zits.
And he parts his hair to the side. Down the middle.
Nicholas just looks like an idiot. Like, he looks like a Neanderthal. He's got, like, this shaggy, blonde hair, and he talks kind of like this. I can't, that was a pretty good Nicholas voice. I can't really do a Nicholas voice.
A breathtaking experience in the moonlight tonight?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. And then Sissy is, frankly, well, first of all, not only is Sissy's voice different in the beginning of the series, her demeanor is very different. When we first meet Sissy, she is cold, and she is cruel, and she just tears into Millie. Millie is younger than all the rest of them. I can never remember what grades they are all in.
My guess is that she's like 11, because they weren't in the prequel.
Yeah.
How old are the main character? They're 13, right? Except for Yumi, who was 14.
To be clear, their ages are never made, explicit in the series, and I'm not sure...
Correction, they are sometimes. We know that... Well, I guess that might constitute a spoiler, so let's not say it.
The translation from the French school system to the American school system, I'm not sure was very seamless, so I think there might be some stuff lost in the translation. We know that Jeremy and Odd and Ulrich are in one grade, and that Yumi is a grade above them.
Yes.
And so we're pretty sure that Millie and Tamiya are in a grade below Jeremy and Odd and Ulrich, and Sissy and Nick and Nicholas and Herb.
I think...
So... That's about what we got.
I think Millie and Tamiya are even younger than that, because Yumi and the rest of the gang look much closer in age than Millie does to any of them.
That's very true. Also, they're very short.
They're very short.
Yes, they just happen to be short.
Yes. So what they do is they decide that they are going to interview Sissy, because last year Sissy was elected the beauty queen at this dance, which why a middle school dance has a beauty contest, I'm not really sure. But they ask if they can ask her a few questions, and she just goes off on them.
She does.
It's pretty bad.
Maybe you can go to the sandbox dance.
Yeah, why don't you play with your dolls?
Yeah, and nobody wants to talk to you, dorks. And no, trust me, she has nothing to do with them at all. And of course, this reduces Millie practically to tears. And then, Sissy says, and nobody would want to go with you anyway. Or something like that, I'm paraphrasing. And then Millie tries to ask Ulrich. And if I was 14 and I was watching this, Ulrich would have been the heartthrob of the group. I'm not sure if that's a universal standard. I just want to point that out.
I think he was.
Yeah. A lot of fans were into him.
Yeah, so Millie, of course, asks Ulrich. And
she's in tears,
yes.
and Odd is kind of laughing a little bit, which, kind of a jerky thing.
That.
And Ulrich, I think, lets her down pretty easy. He's like, I'm too old for you, and besides, I already said I'd go with Yumi.
Should we briefly describe who these people are? Like, Ulrich is like the strong silent type.
He's the sulky, very stoic type. His name, we will later find out, is Ulrich Stern, and that's very fair. Odd, who we mentioned earlier as laughing, Odd Delarobia. We will later hear him described as scrawny, and then he will argue and tell you that he is svelte. But he is very small. He has this very, odd, upswept yellow hair. He dyes a splotch of purple in it.
Don't know what he looks like? Take a second, pause, and the next opportunity you get, Google him. You're welcome.
His head is kind of like teardrop shaped.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yep. It's pretty out there.
And
then Yumi is very tall and very tough.
And she's the most normal looking out of all of them, I think.
She wears all black. Definitely, if this were an actual American show, she would have been described as a tomboy at least 8 times in the first episode alone.
Oh, yeah.
They don't use that word, of course, in the series, but she's very much, she wears this black, turtlenecks, or maybe it's not a turtleneck. Is it a turtleneck?
It's not a turtleneck.
It's
a big black sweater.
Enthusiast.
Jeremy wears the turtleneck. Jeremy is the nerd. But
we'll meet him later.
Yeah, we'll meet him in like 5 minutes, right? Or yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's not with the rest of the gang. He's off doing his own thing, as he is wont to do.
He does
that.
Want. I've been pronouncing it want. I hope it's not. I haven't been wrong this whole time.
Well, I don't know how to speak like a human, so I'll take your word for it.
And now, what was I going to say? Oh, anyway, Ulrich says, I already agreed to go with Yumi. And they kind of blush and do little things with their hands. And
that will be the extent of their entire relationship for the entire duration of the show.
Ben, that's a spoiler!
See, there we go. We even out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a spoiler.
It's also the furthest they ever get. Like, looking back on where they go, it's like, how did any of them ever get up the courage to ask the other one out?
Well, maybe it's one of those... I don't know.
Maybe they're going as friends. Either way, this rejection, nice as it is, it unleashes another torrent of abuse from Sissy, and Millie starts crying and runs away.
Just runs away in tears, and Tamiya chases after her, and all the big kids, they all kind of look at each other kind of awkwardly. And fun was not had by all.
Fun was not had by all, and Yumi's like, I hope you're proud of yourself, and she looks like she's about to kick some ass.
And she sounds exactly like Millie for this one episode, as we've said.
She does, indeed. And then we meet Jeremy.
Jeremy, who we earlier mentioned, is a nerd. He is also, and I think this is another way that Code Lyoko is different from other shows, he's the leader. I'm not sure the
He
nerd
is.
is very often the leader in these kinds of group shows.
He's functionally the leader, but he doesn't think of himself as the leader, and he's very insecure
true.
about that.
That's true.
Like, he definitely
is.
feels inferior to his cool friends, and that's a plot point. It's part of his character. No, it's not quite a plot point, but it's part of his personality. It's explicit.
Right. And it's also important to note that he isn't just a nerd, he's like the genius to end all geniuses. Like, if there's a computer thing, he can basically magically do it.
Jeremy has hacked into government military satellites multiple times.
And without getting caught.
Without getting caught. He is never caught even once.
Well, maybe he is caught, but they always return to the past before it matters.
Oh, did we mention, for those of you who don't know, and it is in fact the name of our podcast, the supercomputer that we mentioned earlier with the world and the girl inside it can also travel back in time.
It can, in fact, travel back in time. We will see that later on, and it will be not explained really before it happens.
It won't be explained. There's. What's funny is none of this is explained or given any kind of a reason until season 3. That's when we get the explanation.
So for those of you out there who are listening and still have no idea what's going on, you're going to know what's going on in 25, 30-ish episodes, so hold on tight.
Unless,
52.
like we've said, you watch the show on YouTube, which is legal and free, and it's kind of addictive, so you might get there before we do.
It really is. Like, there are some bad apples here and there, but it will still be good. Either way, we see Jeremy. He's in his room, which has a very nice high ceiling. I never noticed how high his ceiling is. He lives in his own room. He has a poster of Einstein on the wall, which alternately does and doesn't have tongue sticking out.
It's that one famous picture of Einstein. You know the one I mean.
You've seen it. You've seen it. And he's typing on his computer, and then all of a sudden there's 3D animation. What? Mind-blowing. Remember, this is 2003.
Yes.
So
we go through a desert landscape, and here we have Aelita. And I should mention there's 4 sectors in Lyoko. There's 4 different little worlds. There's the desert sector.
How would you describe, like, before you go into detail, how would you describe Lyoko, like, just in a few words? Because it's not quite the world from Tron. It's more natural looking than that.
No, well, everything is floating. It's these sort of floating platforms in an infinite sky. There's a sea distantly below it.
You know what it looks like? It looks like Bubsy 3D. Lyoko looks like Bubsy 3D.
Which is not something I've...
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's a PS1 game that it was like one of the first ever attempted 3D platformers, and it was a huge failure.
Oh, well, maybe that's why we haven't heard of it.
Well, you've heard of Bubsy,
but that's for
right?
another podcast.
Yeah, okay.
It is. I've seen a little bit of it. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. It's very blocky looking, but it's also very natural looking. There's the desert sector, which is sand, irritating, gets everywhere, etc.
That's relevant and hip to today's memes.
It is. There's the forest sector, there's the ice sector, and there is the mountain sector.
The mountain sector is purple, by the way. It's mountains, but it's purple.
The forest sector was always my favorite.
It's really cool. It has lots of trees.
It looks like if it were a video game, the forest sector would be my favorite of the 4 levels.
Same here. I like the mountain sector, though.
I've always been partial to the mountains. Nobody likes the desert.
The desert is the ugliest one, definitely.
It's the ugly twin.
Well, the ugly quadruplet.
Very true.
But it is the first that we are introduced to.
Yes. And it's where Aelita is.
Yes.
And Aelita is this pink-haired, very naive, very sweet, pointy-eared young girl.
She looks very much like an elf.
She does.
She does.
Like a pink-haired anime elf.
She does. And Jeremy sort of is talking over this. He's like, Aelita, are you there? And then Aelita appears on his screen, and they talk for a little bit. And now is a good time to mention that they have the same voice actress. Sharon Mann, in the English dub, voices both Jeremy and Aelita.
One thing about Aelita that always kind of struck me as weird is that she sounds like an adult woman. And she looks like... How old would you say she looks? Like 11 or 12?
Yeah, I'd say around 12.
Yeah, and she talks like an adult. there's no effort is expended in making her sound her age. It's not a bad voice, but it doesn't really suit her, in my opinion.
As we talk about ages, it's still very odd because they all used to be my age.
I know, it's so weird.
And they are
They all
not
used to
my
be
age
older
anymore.
than me. Yeah,
It's
like
such a trip.
I was 12 and now I'm 23 and
It hurts. I remember, it's funny, this is kind of a random anecdote, but I remember reading somewhere on, I think it was on the Nick.com blab boards when Teen Titans was really big, because that was a big thing that I really liked. I was big into it. And I read that the characters' ages were, Beast Boy was 15, Raven, Robin, and Starfire were 16, and Cyborg was 17. That's not official, but that's what I read, and I believed it. And I remember when I turned 15, and I thought, oh boy, I'm as old as my heroes. I'm a real teenager now. And
no.
looking back on that, it's so sad that so much time has passed, you know?
It really is.
Being 15, I felt so mature. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
And now we look back.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that's just something interesting, though, because we see these middle schoolers, and I feel like a lot of adults look down on middle schoolers and they either disparage them for interests they have that adults don't understand, or they think of them as uncomplicated kids. And here we see these 12 to 13-year-olds with just these rich inner lives, and they're accomplishing so much. And I think as a 12 to 13-year-old, that was super inspirational.
It really was.
Absolutely. Even though they're attacked by this computer demon on a regular basis, the middle school lives of these children was far more stable and far more rich than my middle school life ever was. Middle school is a terrible place without a computer demon, and yet they had one, and it's worked out pretty well for them.
I will integrate the phrase computer demon into my personal lexicon, so thanks for that.
Same here. During this conversation that they have, they bring up a lot of concepts that, once again, not explained.
And some
Alita
that will be quietly dropped later on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like vibrations.
Yes.
I missed the
Alita
pulsations.
says... Yes.
Oh, pulsations, sorry.
That's what they used initially to discover when Xana was drawing power from the supercomputer to do what he does. He does that by activating towers, which are just these little cylindrical things that are scattered across the landscape.
I'm not sure they're little. They're very tall.
They're very tall, little compared to the rest of the world. And Alita can sort of
They look like Pocky.
feel...
They look like Pocky. They even have chocolate on one end.
Yes, they do.
It's not chocolate. It's weird, strange
Goop.
goop.
It's like Vexus
Yes.
from Ferngully.
Yes. Alita has... Her power is, on Lyoko, that she has a connection with the world. That she can feel when the towers are drawing power, and she feels that as pulsations. And that's her way of discovering when Xana is attacking. And Jeremy, on his end, can also determine which tower is activated with at this point, a very imperfect scan. He perfects it in Season 2 and calls it the Super Scan, because of course.
And also another thing.
It's hard to talk this long.
Yeah, no, I'm doing okay. You're doing well. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say that another thing that Alita can do is sing a single high-pitched note, and she can change the environment doing that. Usually to add more
Yes.
platforms.
Alita is very connected to this world. Again, and we're just sort of left to process what that means.
Right.
They talk about Jeremy and Alita. They talk about materialization, and that's another
Yes.
thing that we don't really, at that point anyway, get into. We just know that
Right.
that's what they're aiming for. This materialization.
I
Right.
could have sworn that they do discuss exactly what they want to do with it in this first conversation.
Well, he just gives one clarification that it's so you can come live with us. So basically, you can kind of figure out from context clues that he wants to get her out of the computer and make her go to school.
So, to put it in other words, he wants to bring his waifu to laifu.
Yes.
He does. He does, indeed.
He wants to bring his waifu to
As
life.
do we all. It is a noble and relatable goal.
It is a notable and relatable goal to bring your waifu to laifu. Either way, they have that sweet conversation, And then we go back to, I think, oh yes, it's Millie and Tamia's dorm. Millie's still crying because, as you know, these are the main characters. We gotta go back to them. And Millie is super upset. She just throws a fit. She's like, I hate them all. I hate everybody in the world.
She literally says that.
She literally says, I hate everyone in the world. And we're looking through we're looking at their reflections through one of the computer screens in their room, and it flashes to life. And there's a little eye there.
Well, it's not quite
this symbol
an eye.
that you have definitely seen. Yeah. It's called the eye, but it doesn't look like an eye. It's the 3-ring symbol with the 4 spokes coming out of it, 3 at the bottom, 1 at the top. You've seen it. Even if you couldn't pull it out of your head, if you go Google it, you will know.
Google Code Lyoko logo, and you'll see it. That's the first thing that comes up.
It's really cool. Then we go back to where the cool kids are still doing prom setup. Ulrich is looking pretty upset at how Millie got upset. Yumi's trying to comfort him a little bit, and she's saying, like, it's okay, I don't really need to go to the prom, and they're, like, disparaging Sissy for how strong she came on.
And Sissy is
Jeremy
right there.
is there.
She's standing right there.
Yes, she's making kissy faces in the disco ball.
She is. At herself.
At herself, yes.
Naturally.
Naturally.
I mean, you guys don't do that? I don't have a disco ball in my apartment that I make kissy faces to. Shut up.
Yes.
You know, I thought I was weird for doing that, but you've encouraged me to be open about my kissing disco balls fetish.
You were born this way.
I'm the only one who doesn't do this?
Yeah, Mary, what a weirdo.
Alright. And then Jeremy shows up, and this is the first indication we get at all that Jeremy knows these clowns.
We all know that he knew the clowns. In fact, we were talking about this earlier, and when Mary mentioned that, I kind of had a sort of, like, philosophical meltdown at that point. Like, oh my god, we didn't really know that at first. That just blew my little mind, but I'm better now. It's cool.
That wasn't the first episode I saw, so I already knew beforehand that they knew one another. But if you're a new viewer coming into the first episode, there's no way to know until then.
There really isn't, that they were even friends, and then they start making fun of Sissy. I can't really follow the thread of the joke. They're like, Miss World, huh? Miss Inner World is more like it, and they all start laughing at her.
It took me so long to figure out what Odd said. He says Miss in her own world, but I always misheard it as Miss Internet World.
Oh, uh-huh.
You don't really want to be Miss Internet World.
I guess you really don't.
No, you don't.
You don't. And then we go back to Millie. There's a lot of scene changes in this episode. I think because they're really
show. Like, get used to this. That's how it is.
Yes. And Millie she's hidden herself away in the garden shed. She has her teddy bear with her.
Her teddy bear.
And she's saying, I'm trying to remember what she was saying exactly.
You understand me. You're not like those big kids.
She literally says those things, pretty much.
Yes. She says, if we were bigger, a lot bigger than then, we could show them. And then you see the eye show up again on some screen nearby. Then Tamia comes and finds her, and Millie leaves the teddy bear behind. And it's actually really cute, because she's like, you stay right here. I'll be back for you. And then a bunch of black smoke wispy stuff comes leaking out of one of the light bulbs and goes into the teddy bear. And you hear a growling noise. Then you... what?
I'm sorry, but to be honest, this is probably one of the most emotionally wrenching sorts of Xana attacks that we ever see. This sort of build-up of the sentimentality of the bear, and I'll come back for you, you wait right there, and, and this sad, crying little girl who's been bullied, and she has her teddy bear, and Xana turns it into a monster. They're not always quite like this.
No, they really aren't.
The thing is, like, you almost get the impression that Xana specifically chose to make the teddy bear bigger because Millie said she wished she were bigger.
Yes.
And definitely. That literally never happens again.
Xana Xana is a lot smarter in this first episode and more understanding of how humans work in this episode than he ever will be again.
Yeah, basically.
How do you guys feel about Xana as a character?
As a character?
Yeah, I hesitate to call him a character, because he really isn't one. But how do you feel about him?
if Xana had remained in the same sort of way that I just described in this first episode, he probably would have been a believable true villain. But certainly at least halfway through the first season, and then for the rest of the entire show, he's not so much a character as he is a plot mechanic.
Yeah, that's...
Basically...
They're not really fighting Xana so much as they're, like, fighting the abstract idea of danger, you know?
Yeah.
He can do things.
Also, he's...
Like, for example...
he starts to get repetitive.
Very repetitive.
That never bothered me.
He's capable... Yeah.
The repetition never bothered me, personally, but lots of other things
neither.
did.
It's just interesting how he's capable of these world-shattering apocalypses, which he shows in the beginning of the series, and then it's like he just has a personal vendetta against the kids.
And that's the way it is for the next 3.5 seasons.
A more generous reviewer would call that character growth. Like, at first he has, like, he just wants to destroy the world, but then later on he wants to destroy these people specifically who keep thwarting him. But, man, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be that generous, to be honest.
The first season of Code Lyoko is very different thematically. Maybe I shouldn't say very different, but it's different thematically from the rest of the show.
It really is.
The first season consists of one sort of idea of how the show runs, and then season 2, 3, and 4 are a completely separate but related thread. And I believe I believe that the creative force behind the first season is no longer present in the succeeding seasons. You know more about that than I do. Yeah.
There's really a huge turnover between season 1 and 2, seasons 2, and then 3 and 4 are kind of the same creative team.
Yeah.
Now we continue with the next scene wherein Sissy, Nicholas, and Herb have returned to the dorms, and she stops outside to dismiss her cohort. She's just like,
don't think.
Leave me alone.
It doesn't suit you.
Yeah. She's like, stop sticking to me like glue.
And they proceed to stick to her like glue for literally the entirety of the entire series. But...
Absolutely. She slams their door in their faces.
And proceeds to get naked.
Yeah. That's kind of something we maybe should have brought up. There's a difference in values.
This is France, after all.
There's gonna be a lot of middle schoolers in their underwear. Sorry about that.
Well,
yeah. One thing that I noticed...
you go ahead first.
One thing that I noticed, as Sissy, she's changing clothes, right? So she gets out of her clothes and she's in this, like, literally, she's in pink underwear. And we see these shots of her room as she's, like, putting on makeup and putting different clothes on or whatever. And there are these posters of these huge beefcake dudes on her wall. And I never noticed it, probably because it was so brief on the show. I think you only see it in the reflection in her mirror, so you're just... But there's, like, it's clearly a big, beefy dude in just, like, a Speedo or something.
Oh goodness.
And she's got, like, bands, boy bands or stuff on her other walls. So it's clearly, we would call it a teenage girl's bedroom, except we have to remember that, from American eyes, she's, like, 13. And This is what's going on. Which, I remind you all, aired on Cartoon Network as it was, like, 4 p.m. Code Lyoko had the prime kids just getting home off the bus slot on Code Lyoko or on Cartoon Network for 4 years. And that's what they put in it.
Well, when you're that young, it doesn't really faze you. It's only until you grow up and you realize that adults drew all of that it becomes a little creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, looking back on it, I was, like, super uncomfortable even just watching that for this. But what happens is we see her walking around and putting this on and sort of talking to herself about how dare Millie defy her and how dare she ask out Ulrich because she's the best and she deserves all the best things.
I am the star, the diva
of the school.
And she has a big crush on Ulrich, and that's the other half of her personality.
It basically is. She's like, if anyone's going with Ulrich, it absolutely has to be me.
That's a very good Sissy impression, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And that is just, like, the shadow of the tip of what happens with Ulrich and Sissy over the course of the show. But anyway, we also see, like, these weird overlays, like these mechanized, computerized overlays of something looking at her, and then her room starts falling apart.
Well, do we really see her room fall apart, or do we see her reacting to something that's not really shown?
We see her, like, makeup shelf falling over. I don't know if there's something else happening, but she, like, falls on the floor and gives just a scream, and then, I only just realized this now, she presumably runs screaming half-naked into the hallway.
You know, and I will say this, and again, all of these things I say with boundless love. Code Lyoko is one of those shows where you can tell all the screaming was done by people standing at a mic in a studio.
Yes.
You know,
I never really thought of that.
There are screams that feel like when you watch them on an animated show that feel natural, and then there are screams like in Code Lyoko, or at least I should say in this first episode because it's the one I've most freshly watched, where it's recorded. You can tell. You'll lose a little bit of that. But again, boundless love.
What's funny, though, is that another thing that people have remarked on is that there's a lot of heavy breathing in Code Lyoko. Like, when the characters...
Yes.
When they're running, they're panting heavily.
That's very true, yes.
Would you say that sounds artificial as well? Or is it, like, weirdly realistic?
It feels like a weird directing decision, kind of like, oh, they're running, we should have them panting. And then it ended up sounding really weird, so they just kind of stopped.
Ended up sounding lewd, to put it that way. And people
really
have
did.
made remixes of it on YouTube, and they are very funny.
I didn't know that they had.
That's unique to Code Lyoko.
Oh, no, it's not, but, like, it's a remarked upon quality of Code Lyoko specifically. Like, on TV tropes, it's mentioned over and over again.
It's funny, I never... No... Huh.
It is.
Man, yeah, I keep having these, like, paradigm shifts. You guys are blowing my mind, man.
What did I do? Have you never seen that? Like, on TV tropes, there's several pages where it's mentioned.
Okay, I guess I'll go take a look. I haven't browsed the Code Lyoko page on tvtropes.com. That was not a plug. Very recently, so I'll have to go and take a look at that captivating and interesting internet content.
Yeah,
Still not
it's on accidental innuendo. It's in orgasmic combat. It's in all sorts of little pages.
You're an expert in this field.
I wasted a lot of my life
looked at that
on TV tropes.
I haven't looked at that page since the days when I was editing most of it.
I got back into it recently, just out of ennui. And ennui.
Ennui.
Ennui! Oh God bless me. I'm in France, so I forgot. Ennui, yes. Ennui.
Yes, we are presently in France. We are not in France.
Wait, you guys aren't in France?
I knew it was ennui. I knew it. Oh God, bless me. Well, not.
It's okay.
We're not swearing.
It's okay. So, next scene. After presumably Sissy runs screaming in her underwear down the hall, we cut to the outside where, presumably having heard about all this, a crowd gathers in front of the door before good old Jean-Pierre Delmas comes out, sort of cradling his daughter, who is now in a bathrobe and looking very sad.
Delmas is,
the principal.
We mentioned it, alluded it before. He is the principal of the school. And also another person whose voice is drastically different at the beginning than it is at the end.
He sounds super nasally.
He sounds nerdier than Jeremy.
He does.
And
He does.
also he looks exactly like Miyazaki, like Hayao Miyazaki.
He does, which is apparently deliberate.
It is.
But yes, good old Jean-Pierre, our wonderful, wonderful principal.
Also, side note, the adults in the show are very well written as well.
They are.
Absolutely.
They really are.
Absolutely. And the adults, unlike the children, have normal-sized foreheads.
They do.
That's true.
I think.
I've never
forehead
considered that.
I don't know. Mrs. Hertz is kind of
She straddles
grows
the
and
line.
shrinks. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but hey.
Hey,
Can't win them all, people.
you really can't. And so Sissy's coming out, and Millie and Tamia are right there to take pictures, which I suppose is some good comeuppance.
Is this where they mention Super Scoop?
Not yet.
Yes, that's in fact their first time they say, looks like we got ourselves a super
That's
scoop.
all the way at the end of the episode, though, isn't it?
They mention
They
it
say it
twice.
again.
Oh,
They say
I missed it. I
There's-
missed it the first time.
There is more than one Super Scoop. There are many Super Scoops.
Yes.
So,
And then the gang of four is sort of standing in the background, and Odd says, let's see if our old friend Xana has anything to do with this. And we're like, wait, what's a Xana? And
Yeah,
also...
frick's a Xana?
And do those three know about Jeremy's thing? Because we've had no indication.
do you think Teddygozilla was really intended to be the first episode, or was it just aired first?
I definitely think that their En Medias Res was a deliberate choice.
Huh.
It's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah.
We're 8 minutes into the episode, and this is the first time. And so they go in, sneak past somehow, and investigate Sissy's room. And they decide, and they're in disagreement over whether it really was Xana attacking, or whether it was, as they say, a simple short circuit.
Hint, spoiler, it is never, ever just a simple short circuit.
And I felt like I had a thing to say, but it turns out I don't.
That's
I've been waiting this whole time for us to get to Jim, because Jim is basically my favorite character on the show.
Well, you're in
Yeah.
luck, because his first appearance is in the next scene, when Millie and Tamia return to the shed to retrieve the teddy bear, and the teddy bear is gone. And immediately, Jim just looms over them, and is like, it's forbidden to play in the garden shed.
Jim being their gym teacher, who is this loud... how would you describe him? He's very boisterous. He's boisterous.
He's very boisterous.
Boisterous, and at least early on, is very nasty.
I don't think he's nasty.
He's definitely portrayed as gruff. As the series progresses, the gruff exterior sort of melts, and he turns into one of those, I'm gruff because I love all my kids kind of thing. But that's not the way he is at the beginning. And I mean, we are definitely introduced to Jim at first as this, no kids in the garden shed. I've told you it's for adults only. And this gruff authority. And by the way, I want to describe to you what Jim looks like. He's in this red tracksuit, and he has a headband, and his hair just sort of splays out in all these directions because the headband is too tight around his head. He's a large gentleman, so he clearly hasn't been running in this tracksuit, and he has a Band-Aid permanently on his face from shaving, and I can't be 100% certain on this, but I'm pretty sure it changes sides of his face occasionally.
And there is one notable episode where we see him take off his Band-Aid and replace it with a new one.
There is?
Yeah, well, you're the one who told me about that, Mary.
I am?
Yeah, you were.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah,
And
the thing is, I have a vague memory of it. Like he's in the bathroom with a towel around his waist, and he's like combing his hair and getting ready, and he like just pulls off his Band-Aid and puts a fresh one on. Like it's just part.
I don't know.
Like it's a fashion statement,
Speaking of towels around their waist, we do see pretty much every man in the series.
Oh, we do.
In the showers with towels around their waists.
We see Jim shirtless a fair number of times.
Not Mr. Delmas, but I think he might be the only one.
You might be. Well, most of the teachers keep clothed. Jim is the notable exception.
You are the only exception.
But yes. So this all culminates. Millie has basically had enough at this point. And
Oh, wait, I
can't
forgot to
blame
say
her.
something.
Yeah.
Jim is voiced by David Gassman, who, fun fact, is also the voice of Rayman. And now you know.
See? And now you know.
The more you know.
No.
Why am I the music in the musical soundtrack of this podcast? I'm horribly
Because you have the most angelic voice of all.
Oh.
Oh. But yes. Yes, Millie has basically had enough at this point, which I can't blame her for. She's very cranky. It's past her bedtime. She would hate it if I said that. She talks back to Jim, and he's just like, well, you think you're so big, okay?
So
Well,
you
guess
think
what?
You're real big kids. Rah, 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 rah.
And
You're
he says,
grounded.
Grounded. And to be honest, as I watched this episode over again, I felt that Millie's character was very much believable in terms of this is a young girl who's upset that everyone who's bigger than her is making fun of her and the adults, and I felt it was very believable and very real.
I sympathized with her, I think, harder on this watch than I ever had before.
Yep. It's funny how we think differently as we grow old and look back on things.
It really is. And then he's like, now, beat it!
And to me, it's like, oh, great, Millie, really great. Yeah,
Yeah,
And
now
then-
they're all mad at each
I
other.
always hated that. I always hated when teachers did that at school. You know, like one kid would act up, so he would the whole class would get punished. Hated that.
Yeah, no, me too. And then we go back to the main part of the campus. Millie is crying again. Tamia is comforting her. And Odd's walking by. He's holding a stack of CDs. He sees Millie crying. And then I guess he just sort of shoves them into his hair and walks over because they're gone when he comes by. And he asks them what's going on. And Tamia explains that someone took Millie's teddy bear. And she's like, I'm sure one of the big kids took it. And they're looking at these pictures that, sorry, didn't mention it, Millie and Tamia took of Sissy's room.
We mentioned it.
And what is...
We
did?
We did.
Oh.
Well, we
Maybe I
mentioned that they
forgot.
took a picture of Sissy in her bathrobe.
Oh, no, we didn't mention they took a picture of the room. Either way, they did, and what's on Sissy's bed? It's the teddy bear.
And Odd makes fun of Sissy for playing with dolls, which is a very reasonable thing for a preteen girl to do, but, you know.
Yeah, you know. And then, before the next commercial break, we have Jim, who is hanging around the back of the gym.
Get it? That's the joke.
I was waiting for that. And he hears a thumping noise. He looks around, he's like, ooh, what's going on? And then we see a large shadow looming over him. And he gets this terrified look on his face. And he's like,
I'm a black belt.
Watch out. Yes. And then we hear him scream.
And that's generally how Jim works for the rest of forever.
He's just
He
kind
talks.
of there.
He talks a big talk, but he doesn't so much walk the walk.
Well,
Basically.
he does at least once, right? Like,
Yes, we will get into
yeah.
that.
Yeah, we will. We get back from the commercial break, which, well, of course, the uploads don't have commercials anymore. We get back from the commercial break, and Jean-Pierre is in the school infirmary with Jim, and he's saying, now you're sure, Jim, that
This is your
your attacker.
Yeah.
And he holds up this drawing, this very bad drawing of a teddy bear, of this killer-looking teddy bear. And Jim is huddled up under a blanket. He looks terrified. He's like, moo, 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 moo. And you say he's an expert in martial arts. I think it'd be better if we didn't call the police, Jim.
That's my favorite
then-
scene of this first episode.
It probably ages the best, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
What happens now is, I'm trying to remember what comes next in the show. They're still setting up, and they're talking about what's happened, they being the actual main characters of this show.
And Yumi decides that she's going home to shower, and that's when we find out that she doesn't live at school.
You know, she lives off campus with her parents and Hiroki, her mysterious disappearing brother.
Her brother, who doesn't exist at this point in time, he'll be introduced mysteriously in Season 2.
Right. So he doesn't exist yet, he's just hiding.
Like the dinosaur from Dilbert. I'm sorry for mentioning Dilbert, I shouldn't do that.
No, it's okay.
Well, the author of Dilbert is a well-known scumbag.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
I'll forgive you.
It's
once.
2017. Everybody's a scumbag.
That's very true. Except you guys.
Aww.
You guys are wonderful.
You're alright.
But one thing that struck me as I was watching this, I'm wondering why they doubt so heavily that it's Xana, because with the imperfect scanning they have, I think they'd be super jumpy about it. Be like, is this a Xana? Is this a Xana?
Well,
Yeah,
Is this a scan
that was definitely one thing that I had to I couldn't suspend my disbelief on. Obviously, it's Xana. What else would it be? I guess again, maybe the fact that I've seen the entire series is spoiling my perception, but that was one thing that kind of annoyed me about the episode.
Maybe. I mean, I think I certainly didn't notice any of this when I was 12, so maybe I am just an old and jaded.
We're all bitter.
We're bitter adults.
Well, my question is, can the scan detect anything other than Xana? Is it a question of how strong the reading is, or like how does it work?
I think it's just a question of. I think the difference between the original scan and the super scan is the super scan is always running. So basically, they get alerted when Xana is drawing on any kind of power. The original scan, they basically have to run it manually.
and it has to go and check every tower, and there are hundreds of towers.
There's 51 towers. There's only 51.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Well,
Yeah, there's 50 in the main overworld, and there's one in that place we're not talking about yet.
50, that's... You can't divide 50 by 4, can you?
No, not quite.
No, you can't. But
there's,
it seems like
there's
they
this
did.
whole big deal about the 51st tower. The 51st tower. Like in season 2, that becomes a plot point.
Oh, well,
Ooh,
okay.
I didn't realize that.
Maybe I'm wrong. I might be misremembering, but I'm like 90% sure.
We will
there's
find
data.
out later.
Right. There's data on all this that was put out during season 1 that just kind of gets thrown away by the show. This is just
that's
kind of
what we call technobabble.
Exactly. So then, having decided that they should at least, or wait, no. What happens is Odd goes in and he goes to check on Jim because he heard that Jim was attacked by something. And he runs into John Pierre in the hallway and he's like, oh, what's going on? And Mr. Dumbass is like, nothing happened. And he throws away the drawing that Jim did. And Odd fishes it out of the trash, as one does. And he sees it's a killer teddy bear. And he's like, what?
And
so he grabs...
we have a scene transition where the little drawing goes from being in Odd's hands to going to being in Ulrich's hands. And we know it's Ulrich because his skin color is a little bit tanner than Odd's.
Oh,
a little bit, just a
I
tiny
never
bit.
noticed.
Huh. Okay.
I never noticed that. But they're, Ulrich, Odd, and Jeremy are talking outside, and it's twilight, which we don't see in any other episode again. That's pretty neat.
We don't?
I don't think so.
We see
Yeah, it's
see
like
day and night, but we might not see twilight. You're right.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
It is interesting. I just realized that now.
Yeah.
And they're talking about who's going and who's staying here. They don't say where. And Jeremy's saying a solo mission is too dangerous.
Without
and so he
Yumi.
wants
It's
both
too
Ulrich and
dangerous
Odd-
without Yumi.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, of course, they can't just call Yumi. She's too busy getting ready for the party.
She's too busy
Which is, of course, a
providing fan
priority.
service.
Right, exactly. And, but Odd insists that they have to have one person on Lyoko and one person on there because, quote, and even going back in time, if there's an accident, it's all over. And this is the only indication we get in the entire show, I think, about the most important thing about the return to the past. It doesn't undo death.
I think they mention it. I have a distinct memory of somebody saying, and you know that if we go back in time, it doesn't bring somebody back to life, or something like that.
I'll have to see about that.
That said, that is a very important detail, and we never ever know how they know that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, maybe there was a fifth Lyoko warrior that we never heard about.
And then we don't talk about Kevin.
Kevin sucks. See, I know you guys' memes. I know about Kevin sucks.
Should we explain that? I guess Kevin sucks is classified information.
Okay.
But yes, and then what they do? So
wait, hold on.
Goes to
You had a theory
what?
about that, right? That the fact that the Return to the Past doesn't bring back people back from the dead means that there definitely is an afterlife in the Code Lyoko universe.
I was arguing that there is an immortal soul that. However this universe works, people definitely and absolutely have immortal souls. But I think that's a topic for maybe a different episode.
Okay, I have
that's awfully heavy.
I have a corollary to that. That the fact that the Return to the Past works the way it does proves that there is no multiverse in the Code Lyoko world. It's all one thing. There's no multiple worlds interpretation.
We're in too deep.
Okay.
We are in too deep.
I will
reel it back. Reel it
I will
back.
retreat.
All right. Let's go to probably the most standard thing in the show, which is the sequence where they all run to the supercomputer.
And they grab their
take a very
skateboards.
They grab
notably,
their skateboard.
Yeah, the route that they take the first episode is pretty different from the one they take in most, but not all other episodes. They take this secret staircase that appears to have been carved out of the wall in the boiler room, and it goes down into the famed sewers of Paris. And they just kind of, coast the sewers like it's no big deal.
Like, it doesn't stink to high heaven.
Yeah, but yeah, they have skateboards, and except for Jeremy, who has a scooter.
He's the nerd,
we will
remember.
see.
Because he's a nerd.
But they skate through the sewers, radical, and then they come
Radical,
out
bro.
at this abandoned factory. They come out on a bridge and they go into this abandoned factory. And then, because the factory doesn't have a door, they just sort of... Or it has a door, but it doesn't have stairs. So they just sort of swing down on literal ropes. And then they take a freight elevator down into this mysterious...
Really cool lab. Like, I was floored looking at it again. And another thing I haven't mentioned yet, the painting work, the backgrounds in this show are beautiful.
They're very good.
Phenomenal.
They're phenomenal.
Incredible.
They're honestly too good for the animation.
They're beautiful.
Code Lyoko is a beautiful show. Just beautiful. But you already know that because you're here.
Yes, you do. It's just like... The lab is this beautiful, it's this really intricate looking place. It has this great green aesthetic. It's got all sorts of wires on it. It's wonderful. So Jeremy gets in the computer chair, and I've always wanted a chair like this where it just sort of swivels around. It goes to the interface of the supercomputer. And then Odd stays in the elevator. He goes down to a room with a series of tubes.
Yeah, it looks
What did I tell you about outdated memes?
It looks like the place where Fry gets frozen in Futurama. It's very
Pretty much,
similar
except
to
it's
that.
very gold. It's got a very gold aesthetic going on. And Odd steps into one of these tubes. They're called scanners.
They're called scanners.
Yep.
And Jeremy hits a bunch of buttons on his computer, goes transfer scanner virtualization, and he's closed inside the tube, and weird lights and flashing and music happen, and all of a sudden, he's on Lyoko.
He is in the computer.
Wee-oo.
Yes. Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yes.
It's
pretty cool.
It's this whole sequence, like he goes in through this like wire type thing. It's definitely. I am certain that if I had only been vaguely interested in Code Lyoko when I first watched it, the virtualization sequence definitely snagged me. It's just sort of it is in and of itself a thematic build-up and climax in the middle of the show. It's always an emotional denouement. If
really
I'm using my
is.
film words. You're the film major, Mary. Did I use all those words right?
You did.
I majored in political science. I don't know how to create things.
And then we see Odd in Lyoko, and he is wearing Catboy cosplay. Purple Catboy cosplay.
Yeah, he has a tail, he has cat ears, he has claws.
No, he doesn't have ears yet. Those come in later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excuse
he
me.
doesn't get ears till season 4.
Yeah, he didn't.
I'm
That's
incorrect. Do not listen to me, ever.
right. He has big, goofy cartoon hands with little kitty
Huge!
claws. Yeah.
Like yaoi hands to the extreme.
Yes. And then he runs into Aelita. Aelita waves at him, and they're trying to find where the tower might be. And they're like, oh, is it around here? We don't really know where it is. And then they're stopped in their path by the, as they say, reception committee. Which
Welcoming
I think is
committee.
another...
It's the welcoming committee.
They say both interchangeably. I think it's some kind of thing about French translated things where they have a word that means reception/welcoming committee, and we don't really use that in American English.
Lots of things got lost in translation. Like Yumi's catchphrase. She had one in French. And it was
Really?
like...
What?
Can you guys hear me?
Yumi does not strike me as a catchphrase kind of lady.
She has one. It's something like, Jolie, très jolie. And she says it sarcastically. Like, oh, great.
Oh.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. If it's a sarcastic catchphrase, then that's okay.
She
for
has
you.
one. And
It is very much okay.
it was totally lost in the English translation.
Maybe they just didn't really pay attention to it.
Or maybe she said it differently every time, and I don't know. I have no idea.
Maybe. Either way, here come the Cankralots, which are
They're called Roachsters in Season 1. Roachsters.
Yeah, that was always... They mention it maybe once or... the name once or twice.
And then they're Cankralots.
They look like potatoes
they-
with little spider legs.
They do.
That's fair. They're spiky potatoes with spider legs. Xana, of course, the number one thing that we see Xana as are the monsters that he creates on Lyoko. And they are all emblazoned with that same logo I mentioned earlier, the eye of Xana. You have to hit the monsters in the eye in order to kill them. However,
you
that
don't
is not
have to.
explained to us in this episode, because nothing is.
I was under the impression that you don't have to hit them there, but if you do, that's an instant kill.
Oh,
Yeah, that's how it
That's
is.
true. That is true.
That is very much how it is. So basically, they have a big fight, during which Odd loses another 10 life points, which teaches us the other lesson of this show, which is everything's made up and the points don't matter.
Yes, that's very accurate.
Except for, in theory, when you hit 0 life points in Lyoko, you are sent back to the real world.
Except for...
Unless you're Aelita,
yeah.
and then you die.
Aelita
And then you
cannot
die.
regenerate on Earth. She dies if she loses her life points. And also, if you fall into the sea, and if you fall off the platforms of Lyoko and into the digital sea, then you die as well, and you can't come back to Earth. Ever.
You don't die
You don't?
so much as you are virtualized forever. There's no way to get you back from the sea. But again,
Right.
also not explained to us in that episode. But there is a scene where Aelita falls, and she almost falls. It's portrayed as a very bad thing, but it doesn't really tell us why. Did I
No.
mention, by the way, my boundless, infinite love for Code Lyoko? I feel like I'm saying a lot of negative things.
Well,
I feel like I should explain that too, my boundless and infinite love for Code Lyoko.
the thing is, if Code Lyoko were less cheesy, I would probably not like it as much. It's like the weird eccentricities are part of what make it so special.
Precisely. And at this point, there's a lot of scene changes back and forth from Lyoko in the real world. So how's this for formatting? Let's go through the Lyoko fight and then go to what's happening on Earth.
Okay.
Okay.
All
So-
right. So
Odd and Aelita are at this... It's not a platform so much as it's this big circle of sand that has a ramp going downward into this ring.
It's a spiral
there's-
pit.
It's a spiral pit, and they are fighting these roachsters, these cancrolots, while trying to go down into the pit. Odd is shooting arrows out of his cat paws. Aelita has no offensive capability.
she's
this
just kind of
point.
hiding.
Aelita is definitely portrayed in the beginning as a sort of damsel in distress. She is the princess, and they all have to save her.
She's totally useless throughout.
She
Well, no, she's not 100% useless. There's a reason for her to be there, as we've already discussed. But she contributes nothing to
Yes.
the action. She never she won't for a long time. But
she turns around in a major way.
But in spite
Absolutely.
of that, she was always my favorite of the 5 kids. Like, my favorite character overall is Jim, but my favorite of Team Lyoko is Aelita, and I can't really explain why that is.
No,
Yeah.
agreed. Like, she gets
Come
a
to think
lot
of
of
it, yeah.
great character development.
I think so. I think it's... I think, actually, when I was watching the show, it might have been Jeremy. But looking back, at least now, I think it's definitely Aelita was my
Yeah.
favorite.
Well, she's the
Same
most,
here.
like, she
She
means
had
the
most
least harm.
story.
Yeah, that's true. That's true as well. But we don't know any of that story yet, and we won't for, like, a season and a half.
Unfortunately.
So what happens in this fight? The Mega Tank
What happens
comes
in this fight? Well, not quite yet. First, we have one of the very few appearances of a power of odds
Oh, yeah.
that never really comes up again.
Future Flash.
Future Flash, yes. Generally on Lyoko, all the kids, in addition to a funky outfit, have one weapon and one or more powers.
They only have one power. They each only have one power.
Ulrich has like 3.
Well, they're, like, variations on the same thing. His thing is super speed, right?
That's very true. Well, he can also split himself into 3.
Oh, that's right.
not really...
Triplicate! We're working on anime logic where the power doesn't work unless you shout its name very loudly as
Oh,
possible.
that's the entire running theme of the entire darn show.
Yeah. Anyway, Odd has, like, this future vision of Aelita falling into this pit into the digital sea. And the thing about these is they never come true. Odd always always uses this information to interfere somehow. In this case, he reaches down and catches her, and in the process, Alita discovers a tunnel that leads to a secret tunnel through the mountains.
I disagree completely about the usefulness of Odd's power, because it always comes true. It's inevitable. Like, he sees Alita falling, and she does fall. We just didn't see him catch her. You know?
That's fair. That's fair.
Like, everything that he sees in his visions happens.
The 3 visions that he ever has in his entire life.
That's very true.
And it's so useless that they actually make fun of it later in the show. They make fun of his useless Future Flash.
They do, and they actually say Jeremy accidentally deleted it.
No, he deliberately deleted it, didn't he? Because it was, quote, useless.
Oh
wow. To be honest, I don't remember either way.
Like, Odd complaints about it. Like, you took away my only power because you said it was useless.
I remember him complaining about not having a power, but I just thought it got deleted somehow.
Well, we'll get there.
By Jeremy.
We'll find out. Either way, they're going down this tunnel, and the Megatank shows up.
Megatank, this big, giant, rolling steel ball. And when they show up, I mean, it's Odd and Alita are immediately very afraid. The Cankerlots were just minor inconveniences, truth be told. The Megatank, they are like, oh, F.
Cankerlots are like the Goombas of Lyoko, basically.
Yeah. They start booking it through this tunnel. They're running, and this Megatank is rolling after them. And then they finally get into this open chamber, and here's the tower. This big, giant, tall, ivory structure, and it's glowing red. And that's how we know that the tower is activated.
Angry.
And they have to deactivate the tower. But, and this is something I always wondered, Alita just can't run into the tower. They have to stop the monster first.
Right, so Odd is just kind of jumping around and avoiding this monster's giant laser, which it can open up and then fire like a laser that goes infinitely in all directions. Well, not all directions. It goes
in one direction, in one plane.
What it does, it makes a force field, right? It's not quite a laser. It's more like a big wall of laser.
Yeah, it's like a laser wall. But the thing is, the source from which it fires this laser is also its weak point. So, make a long story short, Odd hops around a lot and then finally manages to grab on to the Megatank, aim an arrow into its eye, steal Ulrich's catchphrase, impact, and then fire at it and make it explode.
But see, here's what I've been thinking about this entire time, because I knew somebody would mention that Odd steals Ulrich's line. Odd is the first person to use it. It was Odd's line first. Ulrich
now, why do you have to call him out like that?
Line.
Why do you have to call Ulrich out like that?
I'm just saying. I call him as I see him.
Well, does Yumi ever say impact?
No.
Never?
No, I don't think so. Mm-mm.
I don't think so.
I was going to make a joke about how it doesn't hurt unless you tell them that it hurts by saying impact.
Oh.
No, I'm probably... Like, I think you guys have seen the show more than I have. Like, I've seen it a lot, but Mary is definitely the expert here.
Oh. Well, you're about to see it a lot more.
Yeah, I'm getting
whether
back
you
into the
like
groove.
it or not.
You're in it now.
I'm in it to win it.
You are. So anyway, they've done this, and I should explain that this entire time, Jeremy is sort of on the outside. He's kind of the facilitator. If you've seen The Matrix, maybe you know what I'm talking about. I haven't actually seen The Matrix.
I've seen The Matrix, and I don't remember what the facilitator is.
Oh, never mind. Either way, he's sitting outside, basically telling everyone what's going on from his end, and now that the Megatank is taken care of, Alita walks into the tower, and we will get back to her as soon as we talk about what's been happening in the real world, which is basically Yumi has been taking a bath.
A very long, sensual bath.
Yumi is Japanese, and her, at least the bathroom of her house, a couple other rooms of her house, are very Japanese-styled. Did we mention that it's Thomas Romaine?
Yes.
Thomas Romaine is kind of a weeb. He was the creative mind behind the first... he was the creative mind behind the series, but he left after the first season or was pushed out or something.
I think he was dissatisfied with the way they...
He was dissatisfied. He left before the show ever started. He was with the pilot, and that was it. Okay. And then he moved to Japan and worked on a lot of anime, and basically a very happy man.
And on his Twitter, I think it's on his Twitter, right? It says, French by birth, Japanese by choice, or something like that.
Yeah, so he's a
I don't
total
think it's
weeb.
quite like that.
Well,
Anyway,
it's not too far off from what I said, though. Those weren't his exact words,
Yeah.
but the sentiment is the same.
So Yumi gets out of her Japanese-style steamy bath. It's this big, low bathtub, and so she's getting ready, and she's
I'm
got
jealous.
her red underwear on, and
She doesn't have that's something else.
oh, that is
That's
well,
another episode.
There's a lot of episodes with these people in their damn underwear. Okay.
I'm sorry. What can we say? Either way, she gets out there, and Ulrich is running to her house. He's frustrated at her not answering her phone because she's been taking this big, long bath. And he finally gets to her house, and she's just, gotten ready to go. She's wearing a very strange outfit.
No, she's wearing a really cool outfit that she never wears again.
It was very topical, okay? In 2003, it was peak, this kind of leather miniskirt and these red and black knee socks. Very goth. Yumi is obviously very goth.
I wouldn't call her goth.
No.
I wouldn't call her goth.
And
she's more like...
I
don't know. She doesn't wear enough black eyeliner to be goth.
Yeah, no, she doesn't. I would have loved to wear something like that when I was her age, I think. And then the bear is coming, so they run.
And the bear is now
I do want to
giant.
make a note about Yumi not picking up her phone. We take it for granted now, but all of these kids have these Nokia cell phones.
Those flip
you know
phones.
the ones I'm talking about. Polyphonic. Yeah, the Nokia phones that you could shoot 5 times with bullets and they would still tick. They all have these. In 2003, all these kids having cell phones and they text each other constantly was unheard of. So these kids, you can tell that they have this kind of stuff because they're strategic and they have stuff to do. And that's one thing that I always took note of. But anyway, they're running from this giant bear the teddy bear is easily 50 feet tall, 20, I can't estimate.
It's just
feet.
walking down the street, terrorizing the populace.
And leaving
it's
huge
basically
footprints.
Yeah, it's like destroying the street as it walks on the
City
street.
of Paris
Of the
is
Iron
under
Tower.
attack.
The city of the Iron
It's under
Tower.
attack.
Remember, Mary.
I remember. And so the two of them, they hide in an office building. They kind of get close to one another. They blush. It's
a
really
little.
cute. And then they get to the school. They split up. Yumi's sent to evacuate the dorms. Ulrich goes to the gym, where we see the worst animated dance party ever.
I need you to picture this scene. Okay, in the background there is a completely generic electronic music beat, the oonts, 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 oonts thing going on. It's an entire wall of, they drew a bunch of background students, but they didn't animate any of the students. So they are literally frozen in motion, except for the ones who are talking. And they're all dressed in kind of formal clothes, and Sissy looks kind of nice. She's more dolled up than usual. And Ulrich runs into Jim, and Jim looks at Ulrich in his normal clothes, his normal unbuttoned green button-up shirt and his regular plain old khakis, and he's like, I just can't believe how sloppy you look, Ulrich. Because he's at the prom, and the
quote-unquote
prom. And Ulrich is just, and Sissy's upset, and everybody's upset. And then there's a part where I really kind of have to skip through because it just feels really awkward.
Oh, same here with the beauty queen and everything.
Yeah, so Mr. Dalmas says that it's time to elect the new beauty queen.
Wait, what part are you guys talking about? What's awkward about this scene?
Well, there's this scene, and then there's one right after it, and which of these girls exemplifies charm and grace, Sissy's up there kind of posing, and as if it's not her own damn dad who's about to announce the queen, and then Ulrich steals the mic, and he says, "Hey, everybody, listen to what I have to say," and everybody stops to turn it.
Why didn't he just pull the dang fire alarm?
Yeah, why didn't he? Instead, what he has to say is he has to say it on this mic in front of everybody. We all have to evacuate because we are going to be attacked by a giant teddy bear.
And of course everyone
bursts into laughter, except for Jim.
And Sissy.
And Jim
Sissy's
says,
not into it either.
Well, Sissy's freaking out. Sissy thinks that this is all some kind of conspiracy to make it so she's not going to win. She's throwing a little temper tantrum, but Jim's like, "Oh, I knew it! I saw it too! I saw the giant teddy bear too!" And before anybody has time to think about, what this means, the giant teddy bear literally crashes down a wall of the gym. Everybody runs out screaming.
Before we move on, though, the thing that Sissy says, she says, "A teddy bear? Why not King Kong while we're at it?" And
that's
no, but wait. That was kind of like a catchphrase that she had for a few episodes. X, why not Y while we're at it?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Like, she says it like maybe 3 times, and then she never says it again.
Yes.
Oh,
like, I remember one of them is, "A baboon, why not a red-tailed macaque while we're at it?"
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, you'll see it. I think it's in... It might be in the prequel. I don't know. You'll definitely see it.
We're learning a lot of things, folks. We're learning a lot of things. So everyone starts running. Jim's so scared, his gut retracts into his body. And then he starts running.
Remind me how to learn how to do that.
If I could do it. If I could do it.
I'm fatter than both of you guys.
Are we gonna make this a contest, David?
Well,
hang on, I've got a whole bunch of candy left over from Christmas. We can start this right now, bud. But anyway, Code Lyoko.
Anyway,
I don't know how to respond to that.
The bear is literally terrorizing the school. So now would probably be a good time to go back to Lyoko. Meanwhile, on Lyoko, Aelita has just entered the tower. And when I mentioned earlier about stock footage, this is peak stock footage. Aelita runs into the tower, and immediately, there is no door, I should mention, to the tower. She just sort of, when she runs into the surface of this black sort of biological mass at the base of the tower, she phases through it.
She clips
and then
through
she's
it.
in this... She clips through the tower.
I need a Lyoko speed run, except that's the opposite of what she does.
And it's definitely not a speed run, it's a slow run. She walks in, and there's this beautiful... The inside of the tower, the walls are all these blue screens, and she's on this platform with the Eye of Xana, and it lights up and beeps as she steps on each ring, and then she levitates on. She's flipping. Well, she doesn't flip in this sequence.
She doesn't flip at this one.
But she will flip in the future. And then she goes up to the top layer, and this blue screen shows up, and she puts her hand on it, and it knows who she is. It says Aelita, and she puts in Code Lyoko.
He said it. There it is.
Yep. And then, in a normal episode, everything just sort of freezes. But in this episode, for just the little bit of exposition, we go back to the real world. And Yumi and Ulrich are sort of like holding each other in this close moment that's as close as they ever get. And Ulrich says, "Ready for a trip into the past, Yumi?"
And then this white bubble just sort of consumes everything.
Consumes everything.
I think Aelita has to do it slowly. Because there are some episodes when she runs in and she stops herself and starts walking slowly over each ring. So... What, no?
Starts the proud tradition of taking exactly 1 million years to deactivate every tower.
Yeah.
And then, so in the episode, we immediately, we say, ready for a trip to the past, Yumi? Big white bubble consumes everything, and then we hear the sound of a school bell ringing, and we show up right back at where they're setting up for the prom at the beginning. Except...
So all this stuff we just described never happened.
Forget literally this entire podcast because it never happened. But
like the sequel series that never happened, this podcast did not happen.
So Yumi Freudian slip. Millie is crying, but this time Ulrich says yes. Ulrich will go to the dance with Millie, and Sissy's just floored. She's like, "What?" What does she say? Does she say that?
She's like, "You're gonna go with that silly baby?" And he's like, "Well, maybe, Sissy, when you get a few more neurons, I'll go with you too."
And everybody laughs.
And that's it. That's the episode. Everybody go home. Well, you don't have to go home.
You can't stay here.
So I guess On a scale from 1 to 10, what would you guys give this episode?
10 being the best possible Code Lyoko episode. I would...
10 being, like, Ghost Channel and...
I don't know if I'm that big a fan of Ghost Channel.
Let's be more objective here. 10 being the best, 10 being the top grade Code Lyoko episode, 1 being just awful, just abjectly terrible.
I would.
What did I just get done saying? We're going to be objective with this.
Okay. 10 being the best, 1 being Logbook.
Damn it, Mary! Anyway, this episode is not a 1. This episode is at least a 9.
A 9? I think that's a little high. I would...
Really? I love Teddygozilla.
It's good, but it's not that good. I would give it like maybe an 8 or an 8.5. But I think going all like full 9 is too much.
Well, I'm gonna go full 9. I'm gonna stand by it.
Most of my rating for this is for its sentimental value. I definitely see that it has flaws, but I'm gonna give it like in the middle of you guys. I'm gonna give it like an 8.75.
The thing is, though, I don't think I can really call this episode that good, but it's good to me. It means a lot to me, and that's where the rating comes from. You know, like
in terms of being,
it's what you said. But what I mean is like, if we didn't already like Code Lyoko, we wouldn't have rated it that high. You know what I mean?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
That said, I think a lot of the flaws that the episode has are flaws that almost every Code Lyoko episode has.
Yeah.
Right. We're just explaining them all to you in this one convenient package. And then in the next one, we're going to talk about, well, the next one's interesting. I like
Which is that? Is it Logbook?
Seeing is believing.
Oh, that's right. That's the one with the song.
Except in your case, guys, our dear listeners, it will be hearing is believing.
It will be. And
well,
unless you decide...
Just be thankful you don't have to hear Yumi sing.
Don't spoil it for them. They won't want to tune in.
Okay.
So anyway, that's us. Thank you so much for listening to this, our very first attempt at talking into a microphone.
Yeah. We'll get better. We promise. This is like, we're total virgins here. So we will become more experienced over time.
We absolutely will, David.
Thanks for being patient with us, ladies and gentlemen. Have a delightful evening. In
fact, yes, indeed. And if you're wondering if we have anything like, I don't know, social media or anything like that, we're working on it. We're working on it.
I don't know what the internet is.
It's like a series of tubes.
What did I just say?
You walked right into that one, and you know it's...
All right.
I'm leaving. Goodbye.
All right. So now we need to sign off. So I'm Mary.
I'm David.
And I'm still Ben, as far as I know.
All right.
Super nuclear.
We will give you the context for that next time.
Éteignez les lumières, qu'est-ce que je peux faire, quoi ça sur ma chaise.